Public Protector Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane making several findings against IPID for irregularities under the tenure of former head Robert McBride. McBride, of course, is now running for the post of Deputy Public Protector. Mkwebane also found that former Social Development Minister Bathabile Dlamini did not deliberately mislead Parliament over the SASSA saga. Mkwebane briefed the media a short while ago on the number of investigation and reports. Our reporter Sipho Stuurman was there. We cross live to him now. Sipho, thank you so much for the time. I suppose varying sort of answers with regards to questions we've had for quite some time, but the public protector there alluding to the fact that perhaps the likes of Bathabile Dlamini not as guilty as we once thought.
Well, a very good afternoon to you and our viewers at home. Several reports here released by the Public Protector, Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane. One of the reports, of course, includes that of former Social Development Minister Bathabile Dlamini, saying that she did not deliberately mislead Parliament on the question of the SASSA, cash paymaster saga. She had found her own findings there, saying that information at her disposal proves that she did not intentionally mislead Parliament, but also, interestingly, several findings against the police watchdog, that is IPID. You'll remember now the former IPID head, that is Robert McBride, is also a candidate for the position of Deputy Public Protector, and today we've heard several findings under his tenure within that police watchdog institution, where the Public Protector has found irregularities in terms of awarding of certain security tenders. But let's get into more details here with the Public Protector herself. Thank you very much, Advocate. Firstly, let's talk about the IPID findings. You had three main findings against IPID. Talk to us about those findings.
The complaint which was lodged was relating to the irregular appointment of Ms. Botha without following the procurement process, the recruitment policies, and the second complaint was relating to the protected disclosure complaint by the person who raised these issues with the management of IPID. Firstly, he complained to the presidency and about the abuse of power, or about this unethical, alleged unethical conduct by the then Mr. McBride. And then the third one related to our discovery. On investigation, we discovered that there were irregular procurement processes which were followed in the appointment of this specialist who was analyzing the cell phone information for the criminal investigation by IPID. So our focus was purely on the issues relating to what happened relating to the recruitment of this person, and what policies and prescripts which IPID was supposed to follow. No. The second part, it related to the prescripts relating to procurement. So our findings are based on that. Yeah.
All right. Public Protector, let me just hand back to Arabile for a minute. I understand he has some important news there before you come back shortly to us. So Arabile, back to you, and then shall I await you to hand over back to us.
Sipho, thank you so much for that indeed. Unfortunately, we do have to say goodbye to our SABC 3 viewers at this time, unfortunately. We will continue to, of course, give you live updates and more from that interview between Sipho Stuurman and the advocate there, Public Protector Busisiwe Mkhwebane, right after this. Thank you so much for joining us here on Point. But unfortunately, that is where we end things for our SABC 3 viewers. On SABC News, we do continue. Thank you very much. Well, of course, we are continuing with that interview between Sipho Stuurman and Public Protector Busisiwe Mkhwebane. Sipho, you were still, of course, talking a lot about the IPID discussions that the advocate was then making through as well. Perhaps we can continue on that discussion.
All right, well, welcome back to our viewers from Channel 4 for SABC News. We are still in conversation here with the Public Protector on her several findings against IPID, and of course, it's three key findings. One is the irregular appointment of the Deputy Director there. You found that IPID did not follow proper procedures. That's one.
Yes, that's the first one. The appointment of Ms. Botha as Deputy Director, and they made sure that they appoint her, and the requirements for the post Also, they made sure that it fits her, but then there was no job evaluation of that particular post. The second one relates then to the issue of the procurement, because before Ms. Botha was appointed, Ms. Botha was working for this company, this fidelity company, and she's the one who was doing the very same analysis of data. But then again, Ms. Botha was not even meeting the requirements, because the requirements for the post were at the level where she needed to have certain qualifications and certain experience, which she didn't have. And then another finding was related.
And just before you go there, just for the benefit of our viewers, if we can explain this, they failed to follow proper procedures in appointing a fidelity company as part of their service providers, and this is the same fidelity company that this Ms. Botha was working for before being appointed as a deputy director within IPID.
Yeah, definitely. That's what happened. At first, she was working for this fidelity company as this specialist person, but when they appointed, which information we discovered in our investigation, so it was not part of the complaint, but in our investigation we discovered that she was working for this company and she was then appointed by IPID at the post of this, in the post of deputy director, without following their employment policies, without also following the procurement processes as far as appointing this specialist.
Now let's go to the third finding and use. The third finding is that a complainant was unfairly suspended after raising alleged unethical conduct by the former head, Robert McBride.
Definitely. I mean, we received a complaint, and during the investigation, and the complainant is saying he complained first with the presidential hotline, or he complained there, and the process was delaying to be investigated. He was then subjected to disciplinary processes. He approached then the public protector. On our investigation, we discovered that indeed his suspension and further dismissal was as a result of lodging a grievance and bringing those issues to the fore. Unfortunately, that's what a lot of whistleblowers are subjected to. Hence, as a public protector, we are the safe haven for people like those who are raising or who are uncovering maladministration.
Now, let's talk about this. We cannot escape the current political climate, if I can call it that. This happened during the tenure of the former head, Robert McBride.
Definitely during his tenure, and we were only focusing on what processes he should have followed as the accounting officer of IPID, and those things were never dealt with properly. Hence, we are raising them, and we are saying whoever now is the director or the acting director within IPID should make sure that the processes are followed to the T, because that's the purpose of our...
But in essence, your findings is that McBride, during his time, he had failed to follow the proper processes that were expected of the head of an IPID.
Definitely, as the accounting officer and who's responsible for management of the procurement processes, the recruitment processes, whoever reports to him and the management should have made sure that the processes are followed.
This happens at a time where McBride is mentioned as part of the possible candidates to be your deputy here. So the timing seems quite curious.
Well, I mean, he's still part of the nomination process. Why are you saying the timing is curious when the complaint was lodged, I think, in 2017, and we investigated and we are issuing our reports, and I didn't even know that he will be part of the people who are nominated, and I think that list came after we've done that. I don't know why do we always wanting to focus on the timings and stuff like that.
All right. So, and then another finding that you've also made is relating to the former Minister of Social Development, Bathabile Dlamini. You found that she had not misled Parliament deliberately, despite adverse findings against her by the Constitutional Court. Those
are two different processes. The complaint was relating to her misleading Parliament, that she knew that they wouldn't be meeting the time frame. But then as far as the investigation has revealed, it has revealed that when they were aware as SASSA that they would not be meeting the time frame, they were aware in May already, but she only knew in October 2016. So we have all the evidence. We made our finding based on our evidence, and that has nothing to do with the Constitutional Court process, because the Constitutional Court process we agree with, and we are even mentioning it in our report, that they dealt with the compliance by SASSA and the minister to that process. And remember, there was also that inquiry by Judge Mkhwebane on the matter. So that has nothing to do with what we were investigating.
But overall, your reports speak to an issue of irregular appointments within the public sector, government entities and departments. You mentioned earlier when you were opening this briefing that you're seeing a lot of that. So if you can just speak to that briefly with us.
Yes, we've seen a lot. I mean, in the previous quarter, we've issued around 5 reports relating to that. Now we've issued more than 8 reports. It's a concern because at the end of the day, we are here to support and strengthen constitutional democracy. We are here to reveal these issues, and we are saying to the administration, don't repeat such unnecessary conducts which are improper, because if you've got a policy, you have the requirements for the post. Why do you have to go ahead and appoint somebody who's not meeting the requirements? Why do you have to go ahead, appoint somebody without advertising, contrary to your policy? So that's a request because that's the main purpose of this institution, to encourage good governance, clean governance, and to make sure that public servants follow the prescripts of the law. We're promoting the rule of law as an institution. So these reports we are issuing so that whoever takes over from the people who've committed these improprieties, they don't repeat the same.
All right, Public Protector, thank you very much for your time. Well, Arabile, that was the Public Protector, Busisiwe Mkhwebane, just giving us a summary of some of her findings today. She's released several reports, including several findings against IPID, and also the finding that former Social Development Minister Bathabile Dlamini never deliberately misled Parliament over that SASSA cash paymaster saga that dominated headlines in the past few years. So with that, it's now back to you in studio.
Thank you so much. There are reporter Sipho Stuurman, of course, live there in Pretoria, speaking to the Public Protector Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane. We continue to give you more news.